Yeah, so I heard about this story reading an obituary in the New York Times way back in 2013. I read this article that had the headline, Night Witch of World War II Dies at 91. And I read through the article, was enamored and spellbound, and let it brew in my mind for a few years. And then I decided to turn it into a play because that's what I know best.
Nice. And can you give me kind of a quick summary of first what were the Night Witches?
The Night Witches were this all-female regiment of combat pilots that served for the Soviet Union in World War II. It was all-female pilots, navigators, and mechanics. They flew for the Soviet Union for 3.5 years and were the most decorated regiment in the entire Soviet Air Force.
And didn't you say at one point were they were stealing planes until they were allowed to fly?
That happened before the regiment was formed because when the Nazis first invaded, girls were taking planes to go fly because they were just so inspired and so compelled and had this urgency to do something. And so Marina Raskova, who founded the regiments, actually wrote a letter to Joseph Stalin saying, the girls are stealing planes anyway, we should have some structure and some order if you want this to work.
And how did they perform overall?
They performed very, very well. Like I said, they were the most decorated unit in the Soviet Air Force. I think there were over 30 heroes of the Soviet Union, which is the equivalent of the Bronze Star. The regiment was only 112 girls, and they went on over 24,000 nighttime bombing missions over 3.5 years.
Wow. So how does that translate to your production? What's a plot summary?
So our plot summary is we take the impression of the girl's experience through the book A Dance with Death by Anne Noggle, and we take these accounts and create a almost a fairy tale like retelling of the Night Witch's story on the Eastern Front.
And can you talk a little bit about how did the characters grow or change throughout the storyline?
Yeah, so the characters are a compilation of different women. In the show, some characters are an impression of 3 different women's experiences. Another character is based on one solely. We had another character that was developed in an improv back in April. So it's a good mix of well-researched history and using the real words of the real women.
Wow, okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What has the experience of creating this production been like for you?
Amazing. It's been incredible. It's been inspiring. It's been so rewarding in a production sense, in a creative sense, in an emotional sense, and in a sense of personal growth, because I've really developed a bond of sisterhood with all of these women, much like how the women of history developed a bond of sisterhood. Me and the other girls in the show have also developed a similar bond as well.
And what kind of reaction or feedback are you getting from those that have seen it?
We're getting a lot of stunned silences, which is always a good thing in theater, where people just have to take in the story, and then the immediate response following is, I had no idea about this story. This is incredible. What a incredible story, and what a moving story. What brave women. That was beautiful. That was heartbreaking. You get a lot of empathetic responses from audience members of all kinds, young, old, men, women. It's got a really strong appeal to a very broad audience.
And your venue is kind of unique. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we back in April performed in my dad's crop dusting hangar on Ground Rush Farm, which developing the show in an airplane hangar is unique in itself for a theater experience, and telling a story about aviation within a hangar adds to the storytelling in that way, and just sort of it deepens the artistic expression, and it also gives a nod to the aviation world, which is something very special and dear to my heart because of my dad.
And I imagine doing all this in a hangar comes with its own challenges.
Yes, sound is the biggest one, just because we're not quite used to the well, sound, it's a good thing and it's a challenging thing. It's a good thing because we sing a lot in the show, and so when we sing, our voices just float and echo up to the ceiling. But when we're trying to do commands or do military orders or have very intense scenes, the echo can make it a little bit difficult to hear. And when it rains on a tin roof, it makes it almost deafening. But aside from that, working in a hangar has actually been a great blessing because all the resources on the farm and the hangar itself work together, that we can have a creative synthesis of all of that to make the show.
So yeah, talk about what it's been like with all of you coming together on this farm and how that's affected your process.
Yeah, so coming together on this farm, we came here because my parents very generously offered the space, and we all live in New York, Boston, the Dominican Republic. To have the space alone to develop that isn't accessible by any kind of financial reality for any of us. And so to come here to a farm and develop the show and live together and work together and bunk together and eat together in a way mirrors the experience of the women in the regiment, because they were all living together. They were all cooking meals together. They were all working together. And so you get a sense of life imitates art, art imitates life in the building of the show. So you get a real authenticity to the